My phone buzzed hard against the desk. I grabbed it without looking still mid-sentence on the vendor spreadsheet. Then I saw the name. Ethan. I tapped it open. You don't deserve to attend my engagement party. I stopped breathing. The screen glowed back at me, cold, blunt final. Laughter echoed from the break room behind me. Coffee being poured, keyboards clicking, normalcy humming along like nothing happened. I stared at the words again. No hello? No explanation? Just a sentence that wiped out 3 months of planning calls, payments, favors pulled, erased in 10 words. My hand tightened around the phone. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I could reply. Ask why. Demand an answer. I didn't. Instead, I locked the screen, placed it face down, opened the spreadsheet again. My eyes blurred over florals. Final confirmation. I'd confirmed them myself. Natalie had wanted blush peonies in gold-dipped mason jars. I made it happen. I'd called Brian Walsh at 7 a.m. twice to get them under budget. Didn't matter now. My name wasn't on the guest list anymore. I stood up slowly, walked to the office kitchen, poured myself a fresh cup of coffee. Half the staff was there talking about weekend plans, sharing pictures of their dogs. They smiled as I passed. I nodded back. No one saw anything wrong. Back at my desk, I opened the master checklist. Venue, Carlos Ortiz. Catering, Teresa Morgan. Decor, Brian Walsh. All contracts my name, my credit, my connections. I'd spent every spare hour after work building Ethan's dream party. Natalie wanted elegance without cliché charm, without old lady touches. I made it work. I stayed out of the pictures. I deferred every opinion. I didn't complain. And now I wasn't welcome. I clicked save, closed the file, sat still. My first instinct was to call him, but I didn't trust my voice, so I went home early. Told my supervisor I wasn't feeling well. She touched my shoulder, gentle. Take care of yourself, Marielle. I drove in silence. No music, just the whir of the engine and the dull pulse in my temples. At home, I set down my bag, made a sandwich, and didn't eat it. Then I opened my phone again. The message was still there. No follow-up, no apology. I clicked on our last text thread. 2 days ago, he'd sent me a photo of a sample invitation. What do you think of the font? Natalie says it's too blocky. I'd replied, it's clean, readable, go with it. Now you don't deserve to attend. I leaned back, closed my eyes. The quiet felt like cement. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't text back. I finished the coffee, washed the mug, dried my hands. Then I opened the drawer where I kept the physical file. Every invoice, every signed contract, every receipt. My name in black ink. My initials on every margin. I flipped through them slowly, page by page. 3 months of work. $10,000 of my own money. Hours of calls. No thanks, no credit. But every detail mine. I closed the folder, placed it on the table. The edges felt sharper than usual. Then I sat down, opened my laptop, logged into the flight search engine, typed one word, Hawaii. I didn't call him, didn't scream, didn't ask him why, didn't demand respect I already knew he wouldn't give. I went back to work. The next morning, I finished the layout files signed off on the weekend schedule and joined the others in the break room for lunch. They talked about football office gossip, Costco rotisserie chicken. I unwrapped my sandwich and chewed like it meant something. One of them asked about the party. Ethan's engagement. I smiled. It's coming along, I said. Big weekend ahead. No one saw the crack in my voice. Or maybe they did and looked away. I went back to my desk, punched in numbers, answered emails, cleaned up vendor spreadsheets. I forwarded Brian Walsh a color correction note for the centerpieces. Even now, even still, I couldn't help myself. I didn't mention the text, didn't tell anyone what Ethan said. because the moment I said it out loud, it would be real. And I wasn't ready to hand them that. After work, I stopped by the store, bought groceries I didn't need, stood in the parking lot for a minute too long watching a couple walk out holding hands and laughing like no one had ever kicked them out of anything. I drove home, made dinner, ate half of it, cleaned the dishes, checked the mail. That's when I saw the envelope. Cream-colored, formal, addressed in Natalie's handwriting. I opened it at the counter. Ethan and Natalie request the honor of your presence. All the expected lines. A pretty script. A photo of the two of them in soft autumn light, their arms around each other. The card tucked inside said, Marielle Kessler, regretfully declined. My name. Already crossed out. I sat down. My RSVP had been filled in, not blank, not waiting for my response. Decided. Someone, probably Natalie, had taken the liberty. Or maybe Ethan did it himself. Either way, my no wasn't mine. I didn't tear the invitation. I didn't scream. I placed it back in the envelope, slid it into a drawer beneath the toaster behind a packet of batteries I hadn't touched in a year. I poured myself a glass of water, sat on the couch, turned the TV on low, and muted it. I kept thinking, how do you cut someone out of your life using embossed cardstock? I stared at the invitation drawer all evening, like it might start glowing. Like it would make sense if I just looked long enough. Then I got up, opened my closet, pulled out the file folder again. Venue my name, catering my name, insurance my name, everything but the invitation. I flipped to the last page, an old yellow sticky note Ethan had written weeks ago. Mom, can you check the rental chair count? Natalie wants ghost chairs, not the heavy wooden ones. I ran my fingers over the ink. His handwriting hadn't changed since high school. I stared at it for a long time. Then I folded it, tucked it in my wallet, and left the rest where it was. Later that night, Carlos from the venue texted, all final vendor calls still under your name, still okay for me to route them to you this week? I didn't respond. I turned off the light, climbed into bed, faced the wall. The chair count was still wrong. But now I didn't care if they sat on the floor. The next morning I woke early. I made coffee. Sat alone. No music. No calendar open. Just steam rising and the weight of a party that no longer needed me. And then the phone rang. The phone rang again. I let it buzz once, twice, 3 times before answering. Marielle, hi, it's Natalie. Her voice was polished, warm, in a way that carried no warmth at all. I said her name, back steady. I wanted to talk about something important, she began. The honeymoon. Ethan and I found this wonderful resort in Cabo. Oceanfront suite, private balcony, the works. It's perfect. I held the phone tighter, waited. She cleared her throat, then slid it in. We thought a $5,000 contribution from you would be a beautiful gesture. You know, to bless our start together. The kitchen clock ticked loud in the silence that followed. 5,000, I repeated. Yes. It would mean the world. Ethan said you'd want to be part of something lasting. Something that shows your support. My son said that. My son, who had sent me one line 2 days ago that shoved me out of his life. I walked to the counter, set the phone on speaker, and poured coffee into a chipped mug. Steam rose between us. Marielle? Are you there? I'm here, I said. Calm. Too calm. I thought of the hours I'd spent chasing down invoices, fixing Natalie's mistakes on seating charts, smoothing her temper when florists ran late. And now she wanted a check. A number she'd already decided, like my RSVP. You've always been so generous, she added, a smile curling behind the words. This would just finish what you've already started. Generous. That's what they called it. I called it sacrifice. My savings drained, my time stolen. My name erased from the invitation list. I carried the mug to the table, sat down, took a slow sip. I'll think about it, I said. Her relief came too quickly. Wonderful. I knew you'd understand. We'll send the resort details so you can wire the funds. Thank you, Marielle. Really? The line clicked off. I set the phone face down, coffee warm in my hands. I thought about my son's silence, about his fiance's voice asking for money with the ease of someone ordering lunch. I went to the drawer and pulled out my checkbook, ran my hand over the cover, opened it, wrote his name on the payee line, left the amount blank, sat there staring at the empty box. $5,000. That was my property tax bill. That was 3 months of groceries. That was what I'd saved for emergencies, real emergencies, not luxury honeymoons. I tore the page out, folded it once, slid it into the event folder with the contracts. My contribution was already written, just not the way they thought. That night, Ethan didn't call. Natalie didn't either. The silence thickened around me. I cooked dinner, ate alone, stacked the dishes. In the living room, I stared at the envelope with the invitation still tucked inside. Regretfully declined. They didn't want me there, but they wanted my money. I picked up the envelope, pressed it flat against the folder, my name on the contracts, their names on the invitation, my check waiting blank like a weapon they didn't know I held. And then my phone buzzed again. I opened Instagram out of habit. Just a quick scroll before bed. The first photo hit like a slap. Natalie in a white sundress, holding a cupcake, laughing frosting on her nose. Caption: cake tasting with the dream team, Jacker Kessler vows. Ethan stood behind her, arm around her waist. His smile wasn't forced. He looked happy. I tapped the tag icon. 10 people, her mom, her friends, her wedding planner, my cousin Gwen, even her hairdresser, not me. I kept scrolling. Another post, Natalie in a pale pink robe seated at a long table. Mimosas, charcuterie, gold foil balloons behind them, bride mode, brunch with my favorite people in the world, she wrote. The next photo had Gwen again this time, laughing with Natalie's mother. The caption called her Auntie Gwen. I felt the muscles in my jaw tighten. Gwen and I grew up like sisters. We'd shared birthdays, bunk beds, babysat each other's kids. Now she was Auntie Gwen to Natalie, and radio silent to me. No one had told me about the brunch. Or the tasting. No one had asked. I clicked through to Ethan's page. He'd posted nothing new. Just a few older photos of him and Natalie by the river, holding coffee cups, leaning into each other. One had the caption, "She brings out the best in me." I clicked back, stared at the cake photo again. The venue behind them was the same one I'd booked. I remembered the way Carlos had walked me through the tasting schedule Fridays, only noon slots booked weeks in advance. I'd made that call. I'd paid that deposit, and I hadn't been invited. I locked my phone, set it on the table. My mouth was dry. I walked to the sink, drank straight from the tap. Then I opened the group text, Family Kessler Corps. It had been renamed. Now just Wedding Circle. I wasn't in it. I typed Gwen's name. No messages since March. I tried to remember the last time I saw Ethan in person. 3 weeks ago. We'd met at a cafe to finalize the dessert table. He'd been tired, distracted. Said Natalie was overwhelmed. I'd offered to pick up her dry cleaning. He said no, she had it covered. I didn't think much of it then. I thought it was stress. But now I saw it clearly. The phase-out wasn't accidental. I was being removed, piece by piece, uninvited, untagged, renamed out of the conversation. And no one said a word. I walked to my desk, pulled the folder out again. Everything was still there. Carlos's business card, Teresa's invoice, Brian's sketches of the floral arch, all done through me, all arranged by the person they'd erased. I took out the RSVP card, smoothed it flat, looked at my name crossed out in ink someone else had written. Then I picked up the check, wrote void across the front in thick black pen. I slid it back into the folder, closed the flap. The next morning I stopped by the bank, pulled out the safety deposit box key. Walked in. Sat down with a private banker. I laid the folder on the table, asked for copies. And while they printed, I made a new request. I shoved papers into a drawer, clearing space, trying to make the desk look less like a war zone. Then the edge of the event binder caught my hand. I pulled it out. Heavy, thick, worn from weeks of flipping pages. I opened it. First page venue contract. Client Muriel Kessler. My signature at the bottom, black ink, dated 3 months ago. Deposit paid from my checking account. I turned the page. Catering. Client Muriel Kessler. Another signature. Another deposit. Next page. Florals, decor, lighting, insurance. Every sheet, every line, my name, my handwriting, my initials. Not Ethan, not Natalie, me. I sat back in the chair, fingers pressed to the paper. The quiet of the office pressed closer. Outside, cars passed. A siren wailed, a dog barked. In here, just me and the evidence. They thought I was disposable, unnecessary, unworthy of a seat at the party. But the party itself sat on my back. Without me, without these signatures, there was no venue, no catering, no flowers. I traced my own name on the first page again, slow and deliberate. For weeks, I had taken every call. Yes, Carlos, the deposit is wired. Yes, Teresa, the head count is confirmed. Yes, Brian, the arches can be adjusted. I'd done it all because Ethan asked me to, because Natalie demanded it, because I was supposed to be family. And now I was nothing more than a name they erased from an invitation list, except my name still carried the weight of their entire event. I closed the binder, then opened it again, checked every page twice. It was all airtight. Not one contract had Ethan's signature. Not one invoice carried his account. It was mine. I could stop paying, pull my approval, cancel everything with one call. I pressed my hands flat on the binder, steadying the rush of thoughts. The idea scared me, but it also steadied me in a way nothing had in weeks. For the first time since Ethan's message, I felt something other than shame. Power. Quiet, invisible, but real. I slipped the binder into my bag, walked out of the office. The late sun hit me hard in the eyes, but I didn't blink. At home, I cleared the dining table, spread the contracts across the surface. Page after page, the same truth. My name. My control. The house was silent, except for the faint tick of the kitchen clock. I listened to it, counted each second. I thought of Ethan's text. I thought of Natalie's voice asking for $5,000 like it was pocket change. I thought of Gwen's name tagged in photos, laughing, smiling while mine was missing. Then I thought of the paper in front of me, the signatures, the deposits, the leverage no one else seemed to notice. They could cut me out of their photos. They could remove me from their group chats. They could cross out my RSVP, but they couldn't cross my name off these pages. Not yet. I gathered the contracts into neat piles, slipped them back into the binder, clipped it shut, placed it by the door. Tomorrow, I would carry it somewhere safe, and then I would decide when to let it fall. I stirred my coffee without drinking it. Natalie sat across from me, smiling too much for someone who hadn't returned a single call in 2 weeks. "This place is cute," she said, looking around the cafe. Kind of rustic. Maybe for the rehearsal lunch, I nodded. Let her talk. Let her think I was still a piece of the furniture she could rearrange. She pulled out her phone, showed me photos, table layouts, fabric swatches, a photo of a chandelier circled in red. "I've been thinking," she said, swiping left. "This wedding is more than just a ceremony. It's a statement. About who we are. About our future." I waited. The pitch was coming. She smiled again, head tilted. "Ethan and I agree we want the whole thing to feel aspirational." There it was, the word she'd been sitting on. She kept going. Not flashy, not overdone, just elevated. Clean modern. You know, classy. I let her finish. Let her sip her lemon water. She leaned in slightly. We love Ethan's roots, of course, but we're trying to polish the story, make it consistent, tight, like I was a loose thread. I know you've lived in the same apartment for years, she added lightly, and it's very sweet. Cozy, but the wedding isn't really that vibe. I said nothing. She smiled again, softer now, like she was doing me a kindness. That kind of space feels dated, a bit heavy. We're trying to keep the energy forward-facing. I looked her right in the eye. And what does forward-facing look like? She blinked. Well, not struggling. Not too personal. People want to feel inspired, not like they're in someone's old living room. She laughed. I didn't. She didn't notice. Ethan arrived late, sat down, kissed Natalie's cheek. Ordered the same sandwich he always did. He barely looked at me. She brought him up to speed, still flipping through her phone. We were just talking about the overall feel. Clean lines, upscale vendors, maybe reworking the color palette, and definitely avoiding anything that feels inherited. I looked at him. He nodded. Yeah, it's about the future, right? Not once did he mention the binder, the contracts, the name on every document that made their aspirational wedding possible. Not once did he say thank you. I picked up my coffee, drank it cold. Natalie smiled at me again. We appreciate your help, really. You've been incredible. But from here on out, I think it's best if we keep the final calls streamlined. Fewer voices in the mix just to keep the tone consistent. Fewer voices. One tone. Mine, wasn't it? I stood up. Smoothed my coat. Paid the bill. Ethan didn't stop me. I walked out. Stepped into the wind. Back home, I opened the file again, checked every email, every deadline. Natalie wanted a rebrand. Clean, polished, silent. But buried in the fine print of every contract was me. And when I logged into my account that night, the refund clause on the venue caught my eye. I picked up the phone and dialed Gwen first. My cousin. The one who used to sleep on my floor during college, the one I called when Ethan was born. She answered, cheerful. Marielle. How are you? I'm fine, I said, though my chest ached. Have you heard from Ethan lately? A pause. Oh, yes. Natalie invited me to the brunch. Lovely afternoon. My grip on the phone tightened. You didn't think to mention it. She sighed. I didn't know if it was my place. It's their moment, Marielle. I don't want to interfere. Her voice softened, like she was talking to a child. You know how weddings are? Tensions, egos. Better to step back. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Step back from your own family. She didn't answer right away. Then quiet. I think it's best if I stay neutral. Neutral. The word stung. I ended the call before she could add anything else. Next, I tried Ethan's godmother, Ruth. She had cradled him at his baptism, whispered blessings over his forehead. Surely she would understand. Her phone rang twice before she picked up. Marielle, hi. Everything okay? Not really, I said. Ethan told me not to come to the party. You've spoken with him. Oh, she said quickly. I've spoken with Natalie. She seems very organized. Wants everything picture perfect. You know how young women are. Picture perfect by erasing his mother, I asked. She hesitated, then changed tone. Marielle, maybe it's better if you let this one go. For his sake. For peace. Peace. Another word dressed up to mean silence. I stood by him his whole life, I said, voice trembling. And you think I should let this go? She didn't reply, only said I'll pray for you before hanging up. I sat at the table with the phone in my lap. The folder stared back at me from across the room. Still, I tried one more time. The women from church. My circle. The ones who had brought casseroles when Ethan was sick, who had prayed with me in hospital waiting rooms. After service on Sunday, I pulled aside 3 of them. I explained. I kept my voice steady. They exchanged looks, nodded, shifted. One patted my hand. Weddings are complicated, Marielle. Best to let the young ones lead. Another said, maybe Natalie feels pressure. Maybe she just needs space. The third smiled sadly. God asks us to forgive, to turn the other cheek. You don't want to be the cause of division. Cause of division. That's what they called it. I walked out before they could offer another prayer. The parking lot was bright children, running between cars, parents calling out. I sat behind the wheel and let the engine idle. Everyone wanted peace, neutrality, balance. But peace, it seemed, only meant protecting Ethan and Natalie's image. No one was willing to stand beside me. I drove home, unlocked the door, sat down at the dining table. I opened the folder, laid out the contracts, the signatures, the check voided in thick black ink. If no one else would stand for me, I would stand alone. And when the phone buzzed again, it wasn't a friend or family. It was Carlos from the venue. I drove straight to the bank. No music, no thoughts beyond the steady turn of the wheel. Inside, the air was cold. I signed my name, handed over my ID, waited for the clerk to unlock the back. My key felt heavy in my hand. The box slid across the counter. I carried it into the small room, closed the door. I set it down, opened it. Inside an envelope. Thick, my handwriting on the front. I broke the seal. Out came the copies. Every contract, every receipt. The venue, the caterer, the decorator, the rental company. Proof of deposits, wired checks, cashed invoices, marked paid in full. All under my name. I laid them out across the table. One by one, neat rows. The weight of months pressed down on me, page after page. And at the bottom, another envelope. Sealed. Not my handwriting this time. My attorney's. I turned it over. The date was a year old. I'd asked him to draft it after Natalie and Ethan first got engaged. Before I knew how sharp she could be. Something told me then, protect yourself. Don't assume gratitude. I slid it open, pulled out the letter. The language was formal, but the meaning was simple. In the event of dispute, the contracts, the deposits, and the guarantees all tied back to me. Without my approval, the event was void. Vendors were legally bound to my decisions. Ethan and Natalie had no legal standing over any of it. I folded the letter, slowly smoothed the crease, slid it back into its envelope. I'd prepared for this without knowing it. I gathered the papers, stacked them tight, tapped the edges square. My hands stopped shaking. I placed everything back into the larger envelope, sealed it again. When I walked out, the clerk smiled politely, slid the box back into place. I carried only the key. Outside, the light hit me hard, but I kept walking. My bag swung against my hip, lighter than it should have been. I unlocked the car, sat behind the wheel. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel erased. I felt loaded. I rested both hands on the steering wheel. Thought of Ethan. Thought of Natalie's laugh when she called my apartment dated. Thought of Gwen's voice saying she wanted to stay neutral. They all thought I had no part left to play. I turned the key in the ignition, drove home slow, steady, quiet. When I got inside, I went straight to the desk, pulled open the drawer, placed the envelope inside beneath the checkbook. Then I shut the drawer. And when the phone rang again, I didn't answer. The voicemail came in just after 10 a.m. Hi, Marielle, it's Carlos from the venue. Just circling back. We still need your final sign-off on the lighting and seating arrangement. Deadline's Thursday. Let me know, thanks. I listened to the whole thing once, then played it again. Carlos didn't know. Not yet. I set the phone down. Didn't call back. I opened my laptop. The email from him was already there too. Final confirmation needed. Attached diagrams, timelines, backup weather plan. I clicked through each file. Saw my name at the top of every header. Saw the notes I'd written in the margins, adjustments, confirmations, color codes. My fingerprints were on every inch of it. I closed the laptop. I wasn't going to fix it this time. Let Ethan scramble. Let Natalie call someone else. Let them realize that pretty doesn't plan itself. By lunch, a second email came, shorter, less cheerful. Hi again, just making sure we're still good to go. Natalie hasn't responded. Ethan said to check with you. Of course he did. Even after cutting me out, even after everything, he still assumed I'd be in the wings ready to mop it up. I didn't reply. Instead, I vacuumed. I washed the dishes. I folded laundry that didn't need folding. I did anything to keep my hands busy, but the silence in the room never let up. I thought about that last lunch. Ethan barely speaking. Natalie talking like I was an intern. Saying my apartment didn't fit the brand. Then asking for money. Then ignoring me in photos. Then erasing me from the guest list. And yet, my name still sat on every line that mattered. I opened the envelope again, just to look. Everything was still in place. The contracts. The receipts. The attorney's letter. I shut it, placed it back, and locked the drawer. By evening, Carlos called again. I didn't pick up. This time, he left no message. I sat on the couch, the lights off, the coffee gone cold. I thought of how many late nights I'd spent building that binder, coordinating calls around my job, skipping meals to handle last-minute changes. All of it for a party I wasn't even allowed to attend. The next morning, a text came in from Brian, the decorator. Hey, just confirming, are we still using the gold flatware or switching to silver? Natalie said you were out, but Ethan wasn't clear. I didn't reply. Let them deal with it. I walked to the window, watched the garbage truck turn the corner. Then I sat back down, picked up my phone, typed one word into the flight search. Hawaii. Departure next Saturday. Same day as the engagement party. Direct flight. Morning departure. Midday arrival. I stared at the screen, finger hovering. Then I booked it. No hesitation, no second thought. Confirmation pinged into my inbox. I closed the laptop and smiled for the first time in weeks. Let them figure out the mess. And when Ethan's name lit up my phone 20 minutes later, I didn't answer. I opened the laptop just after midnight. No lights on, no noise. Just me, the hum of the fan, and the glow of the screen. The flight was still there. Honolulu. Saturday morning. Non-refundable. I hovered for a moment, then clicked. Purchase confirmed. I stared at the screen, heart steady. Not racing, not shaking, just steady. No turning back now. I opened my inbox next. Found the vendor thread. 50 emails, deep subject lines about timing, decor, contingency plans. All of it anchored to my name. I hit compose. One by one. To Carlos. Due to personal obligations, I'll be stepping back from coordination duties. Ethan Kessler will now be your point of contact. Please direct all final questions and approvals to him. Thank you for your professionalism and care throughout the planning process. To Teresa, the caterer. I'm stepping aside. Please finalize any details with Ethan. He has the guest list and menu notes. To Brian, the decorator. You've done beautiful work. I trust the rest is in good hands. Ethan will be taking over from here. 3 messages. Direct, neutral. No apology, no explanation. I read each twice, then sent them all. Inbox cleared. Outbox full. I sat there another 10 minutes just staring. It was done. I'd spent 3 months answering every call, every text, chasing down final counts, smoothing over Natalie's last-minute demands. I'd been cut out, talked over, erased, and still I'd kept going. But not anymore. I shut the laptop, went to the kitchen, poured the last of the coffee, sat in the dark with the cup in both hands. I thought about how they'd wake up to silence. No reminders, no sign-offs, no buffer. They'd scramble. Carlos would call Ethan. Teresa would email Natalie, who wouldn't know what was missing until guests were already seated. And by then, I'd be in the air. I drained the cup, washed it. Then I walked to the bedroom, pulled out the suitcase. Started packing, just the basics. Loose cotton shirts, sandals. A book I hadn't finished, the white linen dress I hadn't worn in years. I folded each item slowly, methodically, set the suitcase by the door, picked up the plane confirmation from the printer tray, tucked it into my wallet. At 1:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. Ethan. Again. I didn't open it. I turned the phone face down, crawled into bed and closed my eyes. Let them handle it. Let the spotlight find someone else. And when the morning came, I'd be gone. I woke before sunrise. No alarm, no noise. Just the quiet clarity that follows a final decision. I made coffee. Packed the last of my toiletries. Double-checked my boarding pass. Then I opened my laptop one more time. The vendor file sat on my desktop, color-coded, itemized, organized down to the minute. I opened it, reviewed it one last time. Everything they'd need, names, emails, numbers, deadlines, contracts. I attached it to an email. No greeting, no sign-off. Subject line forwarding, vendors, contracts, remaining tasks. To Ethan Kessler. I clicked. Send. That was it. No warning, no good luck, no hope it goes well, just the rope. He could use it however he wanted. I closed the laptop, powered it down. The inbox would stay untouched now. The sun cracked through the blinds, soft and orange. I sat with my coffee. Let the steam rise. Let the silence settle. 10 minutes passed. Then a text. From Ethan. What is this? You're just dropping it on me now. I didn't respond. Another one. Natalie's freaking out. Call me. I didn't. I turned the phone on. Do not disturb. Let them sort it. Let them learn what pressure feels like. I zipped my suitcase, rolled it to the front door, stood still for a second, looked around the apartment Natalie once called a bit depressing. I liked it. It was mine. It had held me through harder things than this. I grabbed my keys, locked the door behind me. The car was quiet. No traffic. Just the hum of early morning. At the airport, I moved through check-in like I'd done it 100 times. I didn't speak unless spoken to. I didn't check my phone. At the gate, I sat by the window, sipped another coffee, watched a child press his hands to the glass, amazed at the size of the plane. I looked down at my boarding pass. Seat 12A. I'd booked it on instinct. Window seat. Just far enough forward to be quiet. My name on the ticket. No +1. No party waiting at the other end. But I had everything I needed. The final email had been sent. The binder had been closed. And back in the city, the countdown had already begun. The ceremony, the catering, the music, the chairs, all waiting for someone else to hold it together. The gate agent called for boarding. I stood, rolled my bag forward, and walked down the jet bridge. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't check. Let it ring. Let it keep ringing. They had the rope, and I had a flight to catch. I unzipped the suitcase on the hotel bed. The linen dress still smelled like detergent. Tucked under it, flat and heavy, was the folder. Wedding. Final. I slid it out, sat on the edge of the bed and laid it across my lap. I hadn't planned to open it. I brought it out of habit, out of instinct. A lifetime of just in case doesn't vanish overnight. The seal was still tight. I ran my thumb along the edge, then flipped it open. Inside contracts, copies, printed emails, my original notes in pen, diagrams, seating charts, vendor timelines, all of it. Still in order, still ready. I'd memorized most of it. Could still recite the caterer's backup number, the decorator's material list, the delivery window for the chairs. My brain hadn't caught up to the fact that I didn't need it anymore. I folded the documents closed. Set the folder on the nightstand. It didn't belong in the suitcase anymore. I stood up, walked to the balcony. Below, the waves rolled in steady rhythm. People laughed somewhere down the beach. Someone strummed a ukulele off-key. No one here knew my name. No one asked for signatures. No one expected me to hold their world together. I went back inside, opened the closet, hung the linen dress on the hook, unpacked my sandals. One drawer for swimsuits, another for books. No checklists, no calls. I made coffee with the tiny machine near the sink, drank it black, sat by the window while the ocean threw light into the room. The silence was strange, not uncomfortable, just unfamiliar. I checked my phone once. Dozens of notifications, missed calls, mostly names I recognized from the contracts. One from Gwen, none from Ethan. I turned it off again. Let them wonder. Let them adjust. Let the rope tighten without me pulling. That afternoon, I walked the beach barefoot. The sun warmed my shoulders. My feet sank into soft sand. I didn't look at the time. Didn't wonder about flower arrangements or delayed vendors or who forgot to pick up the custom signage. I sat at a cafe by the water, ate grilled fish, didn't rush. The folder stayed in the room, closed, waiting, just in case. I ordered another drink, read half a chapter of a book I hadn't touched in months. No one called my name. No one asked me what was next. I was no longer the planner, no longer the patch. I paid the bill, walked slowly back. The breeze smelled like salt and something sweet I couldn't name. Back in the room, I washed the sand off my legs, stretched out on the bed, and let the quiet fill every corner. Down the hallway, a family laughed. Someone dropped a tray. It didn't belong to me. None of it did. I closed my eyes. And while I drifted, my phone turned off, buried in my purse, buzzed once, then again, then again. The first missed call came at 7:42 a.m. Carlos, then again at 8:03, then 8:17. No voicemails, just the repeated signal of someone getting nervous. By 9:00, Teresa had joined in. 2 calls. 1 message. Guest count isn't matching the seating chart. No one's answering. Please call me. We're out of time. I didn't. I poured another cup of coffee from the machine in the hallway, sat outside, let the waves speak instead. Brian's name appeared next. His text came first. Are we doing the Gold Runners or not? Natalie said yes, then no, then yes, again. I don't know what's real anymore. A minute later, another call, then another. I watched the screen light up, fade, then light again. I didn't touch it. Somewhere in Nashville, trucks were late. Rentals were misplaced. The order of events was unraveling by the hour. I had the timeline memorized, set up by 10:00 florals, by 11:30 food delivery, staggered between 12:00 and 1:00 final walkthrough, at 2:00 guests arriving by 3:45. But no one had the walkthrough script but me. No one had the vendor backup list. No one had the real numbers. They'd all assumed I'd still be there even after being pushed out. They thought glue stayed forever. But glue melts. I ate fruit by the pool. Read the same paragraph 3 times. Turned off the screen when Ethan's name appeared. Natalie followed. Then a call from an unknown number, probably a cousin or a guest trying to find parking. Back in that rooftop venue, I could picture the staff looking for someone to answer questions, nod, yes, sign off. But the only person with authority had left the building and packed a folder marked wedding, final, just in case. At noon, a text came through from Brian. The floral arch is missing. Carlos says he never approved the change. Natalie's crying. Ethan's trying to calm her down but keeps asking where you are. I finished my drink. Ordered another. Let them wonder. Let them learn. By 1:30, Teresa called again. Her voicemail was shorter this time. We ran out of peach cobbler. No one updated the order. I'm done. I'm packing up early. 1 hour before guests arrived. No food. No florals. No direction. The kind of spiral I used to fix without blinking. But they'd chosen to cut me out. Now, the silence belonged to them. And while they paced around that rooftop blaming each other, I stood barefoot on warm tile, opened the balcony door, and stepped out into the sun. The first photo hit social media by 4:07 p.m. A wilted floral centerpiece. Plastic cups instead of glassware. The caption: "This party feels like a fundraiser in a basement." I saw it only because Tracy sent it to me. No comment, just the screenshot. I didn't reply. Just watched the mess ripple outward. More posts followed. One showed guests fanning themselves, no shade, no backup fans, no one managing logistics. Another, blurry and zoomed in, caught Natalie near tears by the bar. The lighting was uneven. One side of the rooftop glared hot, while the other looked like the back of a supply closet. The photos showed crooked chairs, random clusters of people, no clear path for the processional. The hashtag meant for the couple had been hijacked by sarcasm. Ethan and Natalie 2025, Creu Ethan and Natalie to mess. I scrolled through it while sipping iced coffee by the beach. Back in Nashville, the golden hour had turned gray. Teresa had left. Confirmed. A cousin's story mentioned the food being half warm, half forgotten. The cake hadn't arrived yet. The music cut in and out. Carlos had likely plugged in the wrong aux. I knew all the failures before they even reached the guests. I could see the cracks forming in sequence. Brian's last text said, "They told me to tape the name cards to the table." With painter's tape. Someone posted a photo of it. It went viral. One comment read, "No one invited Marielle." The only one who knew how to plan a party. I smiled without meaning to. By 5:15, the bride's makeup had melted. Someone's uncle live-streamed the awkward toasts. The mic cut out twice. Ethan's best friend called him a man with great instincts. Someone in the background laughed. People left early. Others stayed to gossip. The rooftop that was supposed to impress turned into a slow-motion collapse, and none of them knew the folder was with me safe and silent in a drawer by my sandals. At 6:02 p.m., my phone vibrated again. Ethan. 4 texts in a row, then a call, then silence. I closed the screen, walked to the edge of the balcony. The ocean didn't care. The sun kept setting. Back at that rooftop, someone knocked over a centerpiece. The glass broke. And for the first time in his life, Ethan didn't have anyone there to clean it up. The shouting started near the bar. Natalie's voice sharp, cutting through the din of half-drunk chatter. "This is your fault. You wanted her out." Silence followed like a wave pulling back. Guests turned. Glasses paused midair. Phones angled toward them. Ethan's face flushed red. He tried to lower his voice, but it carried anyway. "You said she was bad for optics. You told me to cut her." Every guest within earshot stiffened. Some gasped. A few whispered. And then the phones kept recording. Natalie's hands shook. She pointed at him. "You should have stood up to her. She was your mother." That word hit harder than any insult. Mother. On the rooftop, surrounded by their curated guest list, their polished friends, their circle of aspirational contacts, they'd just admitted it. They had erased me. And now they were blaming each other for the fallout. The crowd was still. Some exchanged looks. Others glanced at their screens, checking if the recording was live. Someone coughed. The DJ cut the track, leaving nothing but the hum of the city and the sound of 2 people unraveling. Ethan's voice cracked. "You said she made everything look small, that she'd embarrass us." Gasps this time. Real ones. Natalie snapped back, her words spilling fast. "You agreed. You said she didn't belong." The words landed heavy. Everyone heard. Everyone understood. The groom and the bride weren't just fighting over late food or bad lighting. They were exposing the choice they'd made to erase the person who built the very party they were now losing in front of their own witnesses. No one clapped. No one cheered. The rooftop was frozen alive, only with the sound of one couple destroying themselves in public. Cameras stayed up. Guests murmured. One voice whispered loud enough for others to catch. "They cut his mom for this." Ethan tugged at his collar. looking around, realizing the cage had closed in. Natalie crossed her arms, eyes wet but unyielding, and turned her back on him. The night was over. Not with music. Not with toasts, but with their own voices, sharp and cruel, bouncing off concrete walls and caught forever in recordings they couldn't erase. And while their world cracked open on that rooftop, I sat thousands of miles away, the ocean in my ears, my phone buzzing with every new message they sent into the void. The phone lit up on the nightstand. First one, then another, then a chain of them buzzing against the wood until it sounded like a heartbeat I didn't recognize. I didn't reach for it. I let it vibrate, let it fade, let it start again. When I finally picked it up, the screen was a wall of names. "Mom, please call me. This is falling apart. We need you. Just answer. Please." Natalie's name appeared next. 5 missed calls. 1 voicemail. Then Ethan. I didn't know it'd be like this. My thumb hovered over the message, not to type, just to feel the weight of it. He hadn't known. That was true. But he hadn't wanted to know either. He'd let her dictate the story. He'd gone along. And when it crumbled, he looked for me. The phone buzzed again. A cousin this time. Everyone's talking. "Where are you?" "Another guest. Wish you were here." It's a mess. I set the phone face down, poured a glass of water, drank it slow. The ocean outside my window moved without pause, unconcerned, eternal. They wanted me back in the fire, wanted me to fix it, wanted me to save the night, their image, their pride. But I was already gone. I leaned back on the bed, listening to the muffled laughter of strangers in the hallway. The phone buzzed once more, then went quiet. And in that silence, I felt lighter than I had in years. The next morning, when I switched it on again, the screen filled instantly. New messages, new voicemails. Desperation layered on top of panic. I scrolled once, stopped, and let the folder on the nightstand catch my eye. Wedding, final. Still sealed, still mine. And now completely irrelevant. I closed the phone, slipped it into the drawer, and walked out to meet the sun. I opened my inbox out of habit. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Over 100 unread emails, subject lines that didn't make sense. "Thank you. You're not alone. I needed this today." Then I saw Tracy's name. Her message was simple. "I told your story. I changed names, but the truth's still there. It's yours." I clicked the link. The planner. They erased one woman's quiet exit. It started with a rooftop, a timeline, a mother. Every detail rang true without naming me. The parties, the contracts, the silence, the cruelty masked as class, the quiet refusal to fight back because walking away was louder. She'd taken notes. All those late-night talks, the folder, the trip, even the wedding hashtag used in mockery. It was all there, and it had gone viral, shared across platforms. Thousands of comments. I scrolled through them. My daughter-in-law uninvited me too. I walked away from my son's graduation. No one stood up for me either. You gave me courage to say no. One by one, strangers reached out. They didn't know my name, but they knew me. Not as Ethan's mother, not as the forgotten planner, as the woman who walked. I read every message, some twice. People telling me I wasn't petty, that I wasn't cold, that I wasn't wrong for protecting what was left of myself. A woman from Maine wrote, "You reminded me I don't have to beg to belong." A man from Arizona, "Your silence said more than their entire party." Each one stacked on the next, a kind of chorus I never knew I needed. For the first time in weeks, I felt the sting in my eyes. Not from anger, not from grief, from the strange weight of being seen, not by my son, but by people who understood what it meant to be cut out quietly and survive loudly. I replied to one message, then another. Not long essays, just thanks. Or me too. The article kept spreading. By afternoon, a wedding blog picked it up. Then a parenting site. Then a podcast host asked if I'd share more. I didn't answer, but I saved the email. At sunset, I walked the beach again. The tide had pulled out. The sky was gold. And somewhere behind me, my story was still traveling without my family, without my permission, without apology. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air was still, soft, nothing out of place. The suitcase rolled to its corner. The shoes came off. I opened the windows. Let the breeze move through the rooms. No mail stacked high, no dishes in the sink. The apartment had waited quiet and loyal. I moved slowly. Touched the back of the chair, folded the throw blanket, refilled the kettle. No voices, no tension, no one walking in with half-meant hugs and full lists of demands. The fridge still had what I left: water, eggs, a few oranges. I put the kettle on, sat down. The silence wasn't empty. It was full, the kind that wraps around your shoulders instead of pressing on your chest. My phone buzzed in my bag. I let it ring. I didn't need to check. I already knew. Ethan, Natalie, my cousin, someone's mother, maybe even the pastor's assistant, the same people who hadn't said a word when it would have mattered. Now they couldn't stop. I stood up, walked to the shelf, took down the frame with his kindergarten photo, the one with his handprint in paint beside it. I placed it face down, not out of hate, not anger, just done. The kettle clicked off. I poured the water, let the steam rise. The phone buzzed again. I reached into the bag, pulled it out. The screen lit up, missed calls, voicemails. Ethan again. One said urgent. Another please. I watched them pile up, then pressed the side button. The screen went black. No sound, no vibrations, no interruptions. I left it off, placed it in the drawer next to my pens, and returned to my cup. The apartment didn't ask for anything. It just let me be. I curled up in the chair by the window, let my legs fold under me, held the warm mug steady in my hands. Outside, the light shifted. Evening came slow, and nothing fell apart. I folded the check in half, slipped it into the envelope, sealed it clean. No return address, no name, just a plain white shell holding what used to be mine. I walked it to the post office down the street, took my time, breathed in the morning air, watched a teenager on a skateboard glide past without looking up. The check was real. The account had the funds. It would have cleared. $5,000, the number Natalie asked for. The gesture, the price of presence. I held it tighter. Not in anger, not in regret, just awareness. At the corner, I passed the coffee shop where I used to wait for Ethan when he was in college, always late, always with excuses. I kept walking. Inside the post office, it was quiet. Fluorescent lights, faint scent of cardboard and toner. A man stood filling out passport forms. Someone else argued gently about delivery insurance. I didn't wait in line. I walked past the counter, turned left, found what I came for. The large gray shredder bin. Public, unassuming final. I stood over it. Held the envelope once more. Ran my finger over the crease. Thought of every hour I'd worked that overtime. Every coupon clipped. Every bill paid late to save extra for them. Then I let go. The envelope dropped in. Gone. No noise, no drama. Just mine again. I walked out lighter. Not triumphant, not smug. Clean. I passed the bank on the way home. Didn't go in. Didn't check the balance. The number didn't matter anymore. They had wanted the gesture, the show, the image of generosity without the substance of relationship. Now they had neither, and I still had me. Back in the apartment, I put the kettle on, opened a new pack of coffee. The sun came through the window and landed right on the corner of the folded armchair. I sat. The folder, wedding, final still lay in the drawer, untouched. I reached for it, pulled it out. Then slowly, page by page, I started to remove every sheet inside. I opened the window. Cool morning air slipped in, brushing the edge of the curtain. I moved slow, bare feet against the floor, the silence already filling the room before the kettle began to hiss. No messages. No deadlines. The envelope was gone. The planner closed. I reached for the mug at the back of the cupboard, the chipped one with the faded lettering. Still mine. I poured the coffee. Let the steam rise. Carried it to the small table by the window. The city moved below but soft. Sunday quiet. A dog barked once. Someone's radio hummed through a wall. I sat. Drew my legs up. Held the mug steady. No airport. No ocean breeze. But peace didn't need waves to arrive. I hadn't gone back to Hawaii. I hadn't needed to. The cafe might have been thousands of miles away, but the stillness I found there followed me home. I drank slow. No rush. No one calling my name from another room. No one asking for a check, a favor, a version of me that bent to fit their needs. They could keep their silence. I had claimed mine. Across the table sat the old leather notebook. I hadn't opened it since the trip. I didn't need to write anything today. I just wanted to sit. The mug was warm in my palms. The coffee was strong, a little too bitter. But it was mine. No one could take it now. Not the ceremony. Not the guest list. Not the version of motherhood they tried to market without me. I had given them everything. They had answered with absence. Now they could keep it. A car passed. A branch tapped the window. I took another sip. Steam curled past my face. The light shifted across the floor. And I didn't move. Not because I was stuck, but because for once I had nowhere else to be.